when you're talking about, the role of procurement on this side, and you were talking about the way that contracts might be structured, etc. So if we look at post-contract signature in terms of what typically happens, and yet what could happen in terms of procurement's role within the delivery of services, this is maybe an area that gets this is something that kind of gets dropped quite quickly in a lot of situations that I see. Why do you think that is, and what do you think organizations, not necessarily procurement teams, what could organizations do to encourage that post-contract signature to really engage with suppliers?
I think the big thing is procurement needs a better relationship with the business, because so many times we get the contract signed, right? And the business is there and the supplier's there and everybody's happy. And then the first thing the supplier and the business both say are, bye procurement. Like, we don't need you anymore, right? We'll call you for the QBR. And on the one hand, that's the way it's supposed to work. We're supposed to disengage. But I think in some cases, they're in such a hurry to get rid of us, and we're not integrated enough with them to know when we should re-engage without those very sort of clunky formal cues. I mean, it's great from a due diligence standpoint to have quarterly business reviews. That's awesome. I mean, maybe not all contracts justify that. Maybe sometimes it's annual or semi-annual, but whatever the frequency happens to be, that works. But that's not how the real world works. Like, oh, well, we've already had our one supply chain failure for this quarter, so no more supply chain failures, right? Things happen when they happen. Opportunities are seen when they're seen. Competitors are going to be acquired or acquire other people. The landscape shifts every single day. And to a certain extent, it's about mindset, right? Do we hear about the idea of risk and brace? Or do we hear about the idea of risk and say, okay, this is shaking up the playing field. This is an opportunity. And I think it's very much the same way in following what's going on. Suppliers are 100% more tapped into it than procurement is, but then the business is typically even closer than we are. And it's about making sure that the information naturally flows so that we know when to re-engage. We're staying informed. And this has become more of a challenge as an increasing number of procurement teams have gone sort of generalist, where you don't have like the marketing lady and the logistics guy and the packaging person. And right, then you're kind of in this narrow little category vertical. More and more teams now are, okay, here's our analytical pod. Here's our strategic sourcing team. Here are our category strategists or our negotiators. We're kind of breaking things up differently, which makes it harder to maybe notice that, oh, I don't know, lumber has gone to 400 times what it typically would be, or there's a severe labor shortage among truck drivers. And how does that affect us? If you're not living the category, it's much harder to stay on top of those things and to know, okay, probably shouldn't wait for the QBR to raise this point. This is a now kind of question. And those end up being the things that once the contract is signed and hopefully put in a system versus being shoved into a filing cabinet, we have to know those opportunistic times to re-engage, or someone has to be willing to pull us in. And that all comes back to relationships and how we handle things and how we have responded in the past. And so right now, I think we're building our legacy. I think we are building a new procurement legacy right now. We did a good job last year. I mean, seriously, last year was hard for everybody, but we did a good job. And right now, things are still kind of uncertain, but we have to keep at it and keep doing that good job, because this is the moment when we are building the legacy that we are going to be cashing in on in 18 months, in 5 years, in 10 years. This is going to be the moment that procurement's relationship with the business changed. We didn't get to pick it, right? The pandemic did not wait for the QBR like we wanted it to. It just came in and socked us straight in the face. But now that it's here, it's sort of like, okay, rather than bracing against the risk, what do we make of this? And I think it's a huge opportunity to reset those relationships, because that's what allows us to turn those contracts into the intended value that the business had in mind when we started down that road.